Anonymous ACC coaches are speaking out about the Miami Hurricanes. Some of this is downright venomous.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On today's episode of Locked On Canes, we've got a ranking of all the non-conference games in America coming up. Miami Hurricanes has 2 in the top 10. Off-season workouts are busy this time of year. We'll talk about a handful of Miami players who are standing out and turning heads in the offseason. I get excited by these updates. Now, Athlon Sports is working on their annual college football preview magazine, which I always enjoy. Take that thing on an airplane with you, spend a couple days going through it. And part of the yearly headline maker from the Athlon Sports magazine is when they get coaches from every conference to speak anonymously about their conference rivals. Now, a big part of me despises anonymous quotes. Seems cowardly. A lot of cheap shots get taken, but I understand why, for the gloves to really come off, why you have to give anonymity. Man, I'm having trouble speaking today. Why you have to give that to these coaches, because they don't want to give any bulletin board material that puts their name on it. So the only way to get coaches to speak honestly about their peers is to make it anonymous. And I go through these quotes that Athlon has put out as a teaser for the upcoming magazine. And a lot of this stuff, folks, cheap shots, there's some venom here. And it always, with Miami, it always seems to come down to what? So you see our guy Uncle Louie on his yacht making it rain. Oh, it's always about money with Miami. So the first of these anonymous quotes heading into the 2025 college football season about the Miami Hurricanes is Carson Beck worth all that money? No one really knows right now, an anonymous coach said, but that's the question you have to ask. Now, listen, I guess that's a fair question. I mean, I don't know why they had to bring money into it, because, I mean, what's Carson Beck worth? What's any player worth? Is Bryce Underwood at Michigan going to be worth north of 10, 11 million? You know, is Jeremiah Smith worth, well, yes, worth whatever he's making at Ohio State? There's no salary cap on NIL. The bottom line is, folks, Miami, in trying to solidify their quarterback situation after the phenomenal year that Cam Ward just had at the U, they needed to keep that position stabilized. The Hurricanes identified what they already had in the room heading into next year, and between Emory Williams, Judd Anderson, and Luke Nickel coming in as a true freshman, they felt like their best option was to go out and bring in a guy with tons of high-level SEC experience, 24-3 record as a starting quarterback, and also someone in Carson Beck that Shannon Dawson and Mario Cristobal identified specifically as someone they feel can fit and thrive in their offense. And they love the idea of bringing in, for another stopgap year, the type of experienced signal caller who's played, quite frankly, in some of the biggest games and some of the biggest environments the college football has to offer. So, I mean, if you're asking me, is Carson Beck worth the money? Whatever Miami is paying Carson Beck, who, by the way, is reportedly doing very well with the offseason program now that he's been cleared to throw for the past couple of months. Yeah, we're not going to know the answer to that question until we're deep into the season. But no matter what kind of numbers Beck puts up this year, if Miami can get to the ACC championship game, and God willing, get into that 12-team college football playoff, then the answer is going to be a resounding yes. So, I mean, I guess that's a fair question on Beck. The next couple of points made by anonymous ACC coaches on Miami. This one, an observation. And again, it comes down to money on this one. They'll be decent up front on defense, they say, and they spent like crazy for a new secondary. Darn right they needed to. I mean, first of all, I love how any other program brings in transfers. Oh, look at the great moves that they made for Miami. Oh, they spent all that money. Okay, well, if it took spending a lot of money to bring in a guy like Xavier Lucas to potentially be a lockdown corner, because that looks like what he is and what he will be at Miami, to bring in Zechariah Poyser and Jacoby Thomas to solidify your safety position, to bring in a guy like Keontae Scott, who could end up being a starting nickel here, and a handful of others to try and revamp. And by the way, for anyone who watched Miami football last year, that defensive secondary probably cost this team a college football playoff spot. I mean, the entire defense, but the secondary being the most problematic area. So, yeah, Miami spent like crazy on the secondary. I got news for you folks. I won every media availability at spring football. I was out there. That defensive secondary, I expect them to be considerably better than they were last year. So that's an area Miami addressed. This third comment was probably the most positive out of the bunch. They're good on the offensive line. That's one area you don't worry about with Mario Cristobal. Yeah, I mean, Miami on paper should have among the best offensive lines in the entire country, going to be on the Joe Moore Award watch lists and all that stuff. That's an offensive line to look out for. All right, so here's another one. I thought that this was probably the most venomous out of the statements that were made. I think there's a bigger question here, they say, on how and why they spend what they do on the guys that they pick. It's sort of like a Dodgers or Yankees mindset, spending on top-end recruits and portal guys, and not really a team-focused culture, they say. You're still in Florida. You still have to prioritize the high schools, and they've done that in NIL. That particularly was the comment that rubs me the wrong way. Having the privilege of covering the team and, being about as close to the team as a media member can be, because not everything is done, openly. But being close to the team, I worry less about the culture than the outsiders do, because people from outside the program perceive Miami as a team that just throws money at players without any rhyme or reason to it. That's the narrative, but that's not reality. Mario Cristobal, I've seen this over the past 4 years, 3+ years. Mario Cristobal encourages a player-led locker room, and if players have disciplinary problems, they are asked to leave the program. There have been multiple examples over the past 3 years of talented football players who negatively affected the culture and were asked to leave and move on to other programs. You can speculate on who those names were. We talk about those from time to time. Now, when it comes to bringing in culture fits, your hit rate will never be 100%. But Mario and his staff, they try to only recruit hardworking, talented, intelligent, and diligent players. Sometimes you have to cut big NIL checks to get those guys. That's reality. That's college football. So for anyone who's trying to characterize Miami as some kind of a collection of mercenaries, that's a slap in the face to the hard work that they do at that facility. For what it's worth, they try to call Miami the Yankees or the Dodgers. There are plenty of teams, plenty of programs who spend a lot more than Miami does. Now, maybe not within the ACC. So if that's an anonymous ACC coach saying that, he may be in the ACC bubble. But programs like Ohio State, Texas Tech, even Oregon, Michigan gave an 8-figure NIL deal to a high school quarterback. Yet people don't focus on that. They just like to focus on Miami's NIL. And back to the Hurricanes roster. The Leadership Council, it's been strong over the past couple of years, and I think they have strong leadership again this year. You'll have players like Mark Fletcher, Inez Cooper, CeCe Mauinoa, Wesley Besaint, Popo Aguirre, just to name a few, among many others, I hope, keeping their teammates accountable. And yes, Miami, talking about the high school recruiting part of it, Miami invests just as much, if not more, time, effort, and money into high school recruiting as they do in the portal, because high school recruiting is still the foundation. In case you haven't noticed, South Florida players are among the most sought after in America. So keeping guys home isn't as easy as it used to be, and it's not cheap when you're constantly having to fight off the Ohio States and the Georgias and the Oregons of the world to keep your players home, not even to mention Florida and Florida State, who you always compete with. And we'll talk about the last statement that was made, which was a positive one, about Miami's defensive coordinator. And folks, we'll talk about who's standing out in the offseason workouts. We're only getting started. You want to keep it locked right here on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. We are proudly brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and this stuff gets expensive. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Guys, Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on stuff like food delivery and streaming services, but now I budget smarter and I save more. And instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, even plan long-term goals all in one place. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. And it's Monday, but this is not a regular Monday. I want to wish a solemn, heartfelt greeting to everyone who has served this country on Memorial Day, because I always try to think about what this day really means. I know it means many things, including hopefully having a day to spend with your family, barbecue, enjoy the pool. Like my son is swimming with his grandma right now. But for what this day really means, this is the day that we honor the ultimate sacrifice that was made by our brave men and women in uniform who have fought over the centuries for our freedom and to build this country into what it is, what it's been, and what it should be. So I want to say thank you. And I know we've got a lot of men and women who serve and have served, who listen to and watch Locked On Canes. And I want to thank you so much for putting your lives at risk, because this is the day where we remember those who didn't come home. So I just want to send the solemn thank you out there, and God rest the souls of all those who have fought wars for us, the men and women who fought in, World War II, and so many lost their lives. And it's something I try to think about throughout the day today. All right. So I mentioned a few of the hot takes that anonymous ACC coaches have shared on Miami. Is Carson Beck worth all that money? Decent up front on defense. They spent like crazy for a new secondary. They're good on the offensive line. I agree with that. People accusing Miami of spending money like the Yankees or the Dodgers. What is it all for? I mean, the Yankees and Dodgers have won a lot of championships over the years. I hope Miami can get to that point where we're winning championships again. It's been way too long. But then this final statement, I got no issue with this one. They say the new defensive coordinator, Corey Heatherman, did a really good job at Minnesota, and he'll have more talent to play with than Lance Guidry did. And that, again, that goes back to all the new players Miami has brought in on the defensive secondary, couple new faces at linebacker, and a defensive line that should be really good, especially if, and I assume this will be the case, Ruben Bain is going to have a bounce back year and a healthy season. Didn't have that last year. I think Akeem Mesidor is going to have a really good year. I think Justin Scott at defensive tackle is going to rise to the occasion in his second year. I think that dude is made of the right stuff. You may even have some of the young edge rushers. Is Marquise Lightfoot ready to break out this year? There's going to be a lot of, I think, bright spots on Miami's defense. And yeah, you've got a coordinator in Corey Heatherman who did an unbelievable job in one season transforming Minnesota's defense. getting them from number 69 in defense to number 5 in 1 year's time. He's now going to have a lot of talent to work with at the University of Miami. Defensive philosophy is going to be changed and streamlined. Players seem to like the new scheme. They're getting on so far very well with Corey Heatherman. You know, the proof is yet to be seen. That's going to happen Sundays and Saturdays starting August 31st. But I feel good about the defense, and I'm glad that an anonymous ACC coach gave them that shout out. Now, what you have going on right now in Coral Gables are player-led workouts, off-season programs, strength and conditioning. And Gabby Urrutia at InsideTheU.com shared a good update on a few of these players. And I heard a couple of other things about a couple of other players. But a really good sign here is Mohamed Toure, former Rutgers linebacker. He's coming off the ACL from last year, is really impressing folks. And if you haven't seen it, it's all over X. Gabby posted it. A bunch of other people shared it. This video of Toure doing a sand workout on campus at Miami. A lot of quick cuts, great movement, really good sign for a guy, again, who was recovering from an ACL injury. And Gabby writes, he was described to me as a grown man and a hammer. He's strong and can run. There's still some physical hurdles that Toure will need to overcome to be 100% cleared. But what he is doing independently in the facility has caught the attention of the program. Another one that I'm happy to hear about is a lot of positivity trending out of that facility of Bryce Fitzgerald. Now, Fitzgerald, true freshman, incoming defensive back, was not able to enroll early. So he wasn't here for the spring because he just graduated from Miami Columbus, which does not involve early graduation and early enrollees. He's fresh off of a 4x100 state title at Miami Columbus and in fantastic shape for conditioning, they say. The Hurricanes will push Fitzgerald to be more physical and play with more urgency now that he's at Miami, but the physical tools in place are there. So nice to hear Bryce Fitzgerald. And, we saw some good stuff. Was talking about Chris Ewald and Amari Wallace, who were able to enroll early, practice very well in spring, and now Fitzgerald is going to try to do the same because remember last year, OJ Frederic was not able to enroll early coming out of St. Thomas Aquinas. So Frederic ended up, joining the team around this time in May and had an awesome first year. So maybe Bryce Fitzgerald is someone that'll follow in those footsteps. Wide receiver transfer Keelan Marion was described to Gabby as fast, explosive, and a bull in a china shop. Miami also likes what they have seen from Tony Johnson. Yeah, we did a special feature on Tony Johnson last week. We talked with the Cincinnati Bearcats radio analyst, Jim Kelly, not that Jim Kelly, the other Jim Kelly, who had a lot of good stuff to say about Tony Johnson. Miami is super excited about what Keontae Scott has shown since arriving from Houston. He's smooth, can run, looks comfortable playing nickel. Also some good stuff being said about running back Chamar Brown. Became a priority as they evaluated the roster. He's having a good spring. So is Alex Bauman, the tight end. Now, Bauman was here for spring, but he was limited throughout spring with injuries. So now they're getting another look at him during the offseason workouts. And most importantly, on Carson Beck. Here's the update from Gabby on Beck. Miami appears to be confident in the way that Carson Beck has recovered. They feel like he can make any throw on the field and knows how to use the entire field. Miami isn't blind to his weaknesses, and like Ward a year ago, will find ways to get him better in those areas while honing in on his strengths. Because remember, coming off of Ward last year, you say, what weaknesses? But listen, when Ward came over from Wazoo, I kept hearing this. He's a fumbling machine. The guy's a turnover liability. I mean, I'm not going to give Miami all the credit for this because Ward is the one who had to focus on fixing these issues as well. But, they helped Ward, correct the very few negatives to his game and turn him into, an almost perfect offensive machine this year. It appears to be going well with Beck now that he's in the full swing of things. His demeanor around the building has been noticeable, and people feel like he's locked in and excited about the opportunity in front of him. Similar to Cam Ward a year ago, the sense is that Beck will grow even more confident when he feels how protected he will be in the pocket. That was a big difference maker for Ward a year ago. as he was transitioning to Miami and played a role in his taking that next step. So that was really good info by Gabby. You know, I've also heard good things about JoJo Trader in the offseason program. And of course, JoJo is not a secret. He had a really good spring. He was, from what I was able to watch during spring, was Miami's most consistent receiver in terms of a guy who was just constantly making plays and creating matchup problems in practice. And I think he's continuing that into spring ball. So I'm excited about the Beck factor, you know, and again, it's unfortunate that he wasn't fully healthy during spring ball and not able to throw. But again, if you're going to be in that situation with a new quarterback, it's good to be in that situation with a guy with all of his experience. 27 college football starts under his belt. SEC games, you know, he talked there about how confident Beck is going to be in his protection. You know, not only is he going to have a really good offensive line protecting him, and, you know, Georgia's O-line had a little bit of an off year last year. Miami's offensive line should be really good. And then you're primarily going up against ACC defenses, not, hey, you only face one SEC defense all year and a really good Notre Dame defense as well. But going up against ACC defenses compared to consistently going up against those killer D lines from the SEC is also going to provide Carson Beck with more opportunities to make plays on Saturdays. Speaking of making plays on Saturdays and even on a Sunday this year, On3 Sports put out a ranking of the top 10 non-conference games in college football this year. And Miami is almost as well represented as anybody on this list. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on Locked On Canes. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. For the everydayers, if you want to take your everydayer experience to the next level, sign up and become a Locked On Canes insider. I include the link in the show description below. Insiders get text messages directly from my phone to yours and vice versa with breaking news, show updates, recruiting scoops. We drop the Donno ball predictions in there from time to time. Try it free for 14 days. And then if you like it, after 2 weeks, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. Give you a lot of added value on there on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. So I like this. On3 Sports ranks the top 10 non-conference games of the upcoming college football season. At number 1, Texas at Ohio State, August 30th. Huge game, no question. Number 2, they've got Clemson at South Carolina. South Carolina upset them last year. I don't necessarily know if I have that as the second best non-con game in America. That might be a little bit of a reach, but it's definitely a good one. I think that the next one that Clemson is also involved in, LSU at Clemson, August 30th, I would probably rank that even higher. That one's super interesting to me, opening weekend. And then at number 4, you got Miami checking in for the first time and not the last time. Notre Dame Crying Irish at Miami Hurricanes, August 31st, kickoff weekend. They have that as the 4th best non-conference game in the country. For the first time since 2017, they write it on 3. The Catholics versus Convicts rivalry will be renewed. Both programs enter the 2025 season with sky-high expectations. Notre Dame brings back arguably the top offensive line in college football, and Miami may have something to say about that, paired with running back Jeremiah Love. The only key question for the Fighting Irish entering the fall will be quarterback. All signs point to Kenny Minchey or C.J. Carr. I think it's going to be C.J. Carr. On the flip side, Mario Cristobal is reloaded after failing to make the CFP, despite having a Heisman Trophy candidate in Cam Ward. Part of that reload included the stunning landing of Georgia transfer Carson Beck, who entered the portal over the NFL draft. Beck is nearly back to full health and will be his first time wearing the Miami uniform. So they're giving a lot of love to Notre Dame at Miami. And by the way, Miami is as well represented as anybody on this list not named Notre Dame, because remember, Notre Dame's not in a conference, so every game they play is a non-conference game. So that's why Notre Dame appears a lot on this list of top non-conference games. At number 5, Michigan at Oklahoma, September 6th. That's the second week of the season. Number 6, they've got Alabama at Florida State, August 30th. I think that's probably going to be a blowout in Bama's favor. We'll see if Florida State proves us wrong. They're going to be better than 2-10, but how much better is yet to be determined. So they have that one at number 6. They've got Texas A&M at Notre Dame, September 13th as their number 7. They got Florida at Miami, September 20th as their number 8. So Miami is in the top 10 twice. We'll see. The quarterback matchup could be very spicy, right? DJ Lagway, with all the hype heading into his second year, he got a little bit of game action in relief against Miami last year, but DJ Lagway wasn't DJ Lagway yet at that point in the season, week 1. But Cam Ward was already Cam Ward week 1. Miami's defense played their best game of the season week 1. Hopefully week 4, they're still playing good defense this year. And we're going to get all of that trash talk between now and, late September 20th. I think that game is between the Miami fans and the Florida fans. So that one's going to be a lot of fun. Florida will be looking for payback. Miami will be looking for another state championship, right? Can they sweep Florida and Florida State for the second straight year? So that comes in at number 8. Number 9, they've got USC at Notre Dame. And number 10, they've got Illinois at Duke, which is a little bit surprising. You're kind of reaching at the end of that list. But so Miami gets two nominees for top 10 non-conference games in the country, which, folks, let me tell you why that's important. Number 1, Miami fans, we take pride in playing in big games, not ducking or running from anybody, right? Notre Dame and Florida, 2 difficult games, 2 big games. We all remember in the late 80s why Florida decided to stop playing Miami. They ran from that rivalry. I like the fact that we get these occasional, home and homes with Florida. So, it's good for our pride to play big non-conference games. And then financially, it's also really good. The ACC is starting this year their brand initiative where, teams that put on bigger TV ratings. Miami was one of the top rated TV draws in the country last year. Teams that put on higher TV ratings are going to get a bigger cut of the ACC revenue. And a big way to help your situation is to play massive non-con games. So it's going to be good for everybody. And hopefully Miami wins both of those games, right? You certainly don't want to lose to Florida. You don't want to start Carson Beck's Miami career with a loss to Notre Dame. And let's rake in that revenue, man. So a couple of big games for the Hurricanes this year. We'll talk more in upcoming episodes about the conference schedule. We're going to have another episode today, by the way, because, with the baseball brackets coming out, we're going to find out Miami's fate and destination in the regionals. We're going to be talking with our baseball aficionado, Raymond Borg, on another episode coming on later today. So make sure you check out that, as we're not done with college sports this year. I mean, the baseball postseason is just about getting underway. Well, we had the ACC tournament, which didn't go so well for Miami. Maybe the NCAAs will go better for us. So we'll talk to you guys again on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.